As big as he was.
Tell me when.
Good to go.
Good to go. All right, we'll call the meeting or roll call.
Mayor Reese,
Here.
Councilmember Ost,
Here.
Nelson. Here. Davis. Here. Schultes.
Here.
O'Brien.
Here.
Butterfield. Osmus. Here. Bagerly. Here. 8 present, 1 absent.
To the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you have any additions or deletions? to the agenda? That will go to the city tour. Who's leading that?
I don't know.
It's warm in there. We'll come back. We'll start. We'll head over there. Say probably 20 minutes. We'll plan on being over there. Just a little background before we do go over there. We did have 2 open tours, and right now we have open tours of the building. And as of about 5:15 or so, we had about 7 people go through the building. Most of the people are just interested in the building and wanting to look at it, or had been in it before and wanted to see what it looked like again. So we'll head over there. It's warm in there. It was warm in there this morning, so we'll be quick when we're up on the 2nd and 3rd floor. But come back here and have conversation.
If someone, can we leave our stuff?
Yep, we'll lock it. We can lock the door. Yep. Yeah, we can summarize if that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, we walked through the auditorium, basement and all 3 levels, just how the condition of what the auditorium is in comparison to the condition assessment, the report that was in the packet for the work session, which is the same report that was in council saw probably about a year ago, actually.
Yep.
That was presented to the council. You'll note in there some of the items that we talked about the front. That part has kind of been addressed somewhat. We did have digitized preservation of the front of the building, of the memorial or the slabs, and then the memorial room itself has been digitally preserved. If you look at kind of just cost estimates to what we would need to get the building kind of up to par, cleaning it up and not necessarily making a purpose for it, but just getting it up to par is about 4.7 million. And that was identified last year. Yep. So figure whatever number you want to put in for a cost of inflation year over year, but that's the estimate that was put together by the engineer. So obviously we know that the lead remediation still needs to happen, and we did obviously the council put out RFP for that, and we were not successful in entertaining an offer or entertaining any proposals to clean the building. However, obviously we did receive one for demolition as an alternative option, which the council rejected ultimately. So that's kind of a summary of where we're at.
And in discussion with the vendors that did come and walk through the building, why they did not submit anything for the remediation. One figured it would be close to $1 million or over $1 million anyway, so they just didn't. The one other vendor said at this time they were just too busy to put a bid in for the work. We did have just recently another company reach out to us about the possibility of doing the work, so we'd have to put another bid out, though. We would have to go through the RFP process all again. After talking to Robert Scott, he said that we would have to do it all again, so.
That's in addition to the 4.7.
Yes.
Yeah, that identified
Yeah.
in that study. So $5 million, say would be a good starting estimate. That does not include any ADA improvements or an elevator. Whatever the cost that would be.
I don't know if the rest of the council has talked to John Lindstrom, but he's got some ideas. That makes sense if it works. But we'd have to maintain ownership until the work was done and then turn it over to the veterans. But he says, was it 19 or 2015? He had done some work. I called that he would be able to make it work through grants through the veterans. Veterans Association. Yep. He had some people on board from the communities. Yep. But I don't know if any of you talked.
Is the way to go. I think. They would take over complete ownership.
And then John, if they took over that ownership, John would contract for his display to be in there so that if something would happen, Lord knows what, but he wouldn't lose all of his investment in all of his memorabilia.
Can we give away a building that we know has lead and mercury contamination
That's
if we didn't remediate?
What do you mean by give?
$1?
Is that giving? It's good out.
Right.
Purchase good.
I just thought I heard was that we would retain ownership
well,
while all that work was being done, so we wouldn't be giving or selling building with lead.
until the work was done.
What's interesting is I wouldn't think that he'd be able to get grants and all that other stuff if they didn't own it. Because that was kind of,
Good if it stays municipal. If it goes anywhere out of the municipal ranking, its grants are done.
What he's looking for is the city would be the funder of it. They would get the funds and then the work would be done. Fiscal agent, yes, that's what I want, fiscal agent. Because most grants, you need a fiscal agent and well, most, all of them, especially when you're private, you need a fiscal agent, which means somebody in either a 501c3 or a local government.
but I thought, well, I suppose it would depend on the purpose of the remodel, but I thought we had already looked into grants and opportunities to be able to refurbish it, that there weren't any. So how would there be any now?
Clarification, we really haven't looked for money.
We have,
We,
but everything that we've been finding is only max about $25,000.
with the new, I just think we need to turn every stone. I found myself, I'm sorry, saying shame on us. We spent over $1 million in that building to keep the gun range alive. And I'm sorry. This is a historical building in Willmar, and Willmar has not done a good job of maintaining historical buildings.
Like John said, we put $250,000 in a basketball court.
And, you know, is there something that should be done in that building? We have chosen not to do programming in the building, partly because of the condition, partly because there isn't air conditioning. But I can tell you that there are people who want to use that building. They prefer to play on those wooden floors than the floors that are out at the new event center. And the new event center was set up to be rented, and right now we're doing all our programming there. So we aren't really open to a lot of rentals out there for different kinds of events. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I think we just need to fight to find a way and with, there is new money out there with the last legislative session. I just think we need to look and try. And we had money to do the roof. We chose not to do it. Set aside funds to do that, and do we still have funds to do something over there or not?
Yeah, we have $600-some thousand this year. Because that's what we put in the budget,
This year's budget.
this year budget.
But we had over $500,000 that was set aside once before that past year used in the general budget. Because it didn't have the right allocation or something to stay there. So I don't know.
John's done a lot of research on this, obviously, and he's also said it's a national register. That building's a national register.
Yeah, but there's various levels of the National Register. It's only.
What he's looked up, he said we'll have a real battle on our hands if we tried to do anything with that.
But maybe we use that to try to find.
Yep. Well, that's what he was saying. That's where you get your money.
Try to find.
I won't try and speak for John. Maybe we need to get John.
Yes, we do.
Problem is, he's mayor over there and their council meetings are Monday nights.
Wait, I think what he does is an example of that building could be rented for multiple purposes. There could be vendor fairs in there. There could be Christmas celebrations or something. When he uses it for Veterans Day, that's great. But think of the other things that that building could be used for if we did that.
Well, I don't know what John's thinking. Did he say anything to you? Would he have a permanent display?
Quarter. He said you'd have a quarter of a display.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I really appreciate what he does for Veterans Day. I'm not sure that having that up all year round, unless there's some sort of programming or event things that are being scheduled, necessarily can consume that building either. I think there are other things that could be done in there. You know, when they do the holiday events, and I just think there's lots of things that could be there. Look for a place to go to.
Or do we run into the same thing where you can't have public and children because of the contamination level?
No, the contamination level on the first floor are minimal.
I'm just saying that if we clean up the
They're
building,
not.
should be programming that could be done. Should be downtown events that could be done in there. But it has to be cleaned up.
What do you say, Leslie?
But the time that the kids would spend in there is not on the first floor, is not like spending 8 hours or whatever. It'd be fine. But still, you still need to clean it up because you still have to redo the windows. You have to do everything. So, you know.
That would be part of the lead remediation. And
Yeah.
all the windows would be replaced as well.
Mhm.
Light fixtures.
That's part,
Anything that can't be cleaned.
that's part of the 5 million.
Yes.
Billion.
That was part of it was actually taken off of the RFP that we just brought forward to the council because we knew we didn't have the budget to put in new windows. So that would have had to been done.
The windows, I believe, are in the
That's in this, yeah.
packet that you have. But the lead mitigation dollar was not.
250,000 if they estimated the windows.
Have we talked to our legislators? There's bonding money that is going out to other communities. You know, have we tried to ask them for help with coming up with some state funds for this? I mean, it's amazing to me some of the projects that are done through other communities with bonding money. Have we asked them?
At this point, we have not. We've asked for the community center and we've asked for street funding.
So, you know, there's all these different pots of money that are out there, and this year is basically gonna be consumed with figuring out who's gonna monitor and who's gonna do those. I just think we gotta try. Sorry. Gotta try.
To what other communities are receiving? For what purpose and?
Just go look at the bonding. I mean, go look at the funding that was done for other communities. There's fire stations and there's community centers. That's why we got on the list for that. There's all sorts of projects out there. They were, one point in time, talk about hurling or talk about some of the other things that are going on. They're just out there. I can't tell you what they are right now, but you can go look on the state website and look what communities are getting funding.
I will.
Yeah, please do.
They're all over the board.
Yeah.
And as you know, we didn't get any state funding for the water treatment plant this last year. So it was a heavy one that we we're trying to get funding for. But right now, the first round of state funding asked is already completed. Now it's a matter of refining what our asks are up until October.
October 13th.
Leslie, isn't there a second round of funding requests too?
There's another one when they start.
Yeah.
So we submitted the first round that was due middle of June,
Yes.
that around that time, and then we requested to submitted 10 million for a community center and we submitted 20 million for road improvement projects for 24 and 25. We have until October 13th, I believe, or October of this year, like Leslie had said, to refine those requests. Details emerge from those, but those all need to be submitted for the May 2024 bonding bill for the legislature. So they reopen it. I don't know that timeline.
I believe it's when they reconvene. There's another process that more than that process is probably for the cash instead of the bonding side, but they also will add to the bonding if they feel that they want to. They get their request through. So, we certainly will continue doing that.
John said he had some ideas on grants and some other ideas for fundraising through the veterans organizations and groups. He said he'd put it all down on paper since he can't come to the meeting. Show us. He's been working on it a long time.
Either we or staff need to sit down with John. Maybe if some of the council want to do that.
I'd volunteer for that.
I would also think we should ask our representatives
Or we will.
to sit down and come in and to do that. And maybe even, do we need to reach out federal? Since it's on the national, see what that means and reach out to federal to see what's out there.
Still
Every
have
year
our
changes.
lobbyist church.
He knows about it.
Are we doing anything?
Well, he sends us the grants and things like that are there, but they're not to the point where you need millions of dollars. Like I said, they're 250, or they're like $25,000, $50,000. Going to take a lot of those.
But
If you get accepted, then you only have a short window of a year and a half or so, maybe, to do it. So you have to have a lot of funding put in place in order to put in the holes.
What if we would contact Marvin Windows or Anderson or some window?
Well, see, that's the thing, though. You still that it is on the historical listing. You have to have historical built windows. So that would they're going to have to be specialty made windows because those are not the original windows. And so they'd have to be brought back to what the drawings were in any replicas that we can find back to 1935. Just like
What if you can't find any?
you have to have them made.
No, Find a replica of what it looked
You
like.
have to have them officially made.
We don't know what they looked like.
There's photos.
Oh, there's photos, there's all kinds of photos.
And you see, find the arrow.
Yeah, they do, they find the era. And then, also, you know, I know we never talked about the outside of the building or looked, but the rain gutters above are all hard, or redwood eaves.
Really?
Yes, they're all hand carved, you know, they're all redwood built. So those will have to be redwood.
That's if you get. What type?
Well, if you're gonna rebuild it and you put a new roof on it and you need to have rain gutters on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so when the rain gutters, they have to be rebuilt. And I think there is a picture of one of the rain gutters in there somewhere, so you can see what
That's
they look
get a
like.
federal grant or a historical.
That's if you do any remodeling.
So in the report, it tells you what steps we would need to take,
Yeah.
what process.
um,
I don't recall what the title of it is, but it is in.
So you can't do any remodeling work on it until you send it into the historical society for review.
And another layer on that is, my guess is you can't do any remodeling if you don't make it ADA accessible.
No, I don't think that would be the first criteria of it.
Leslie, when we went out to Washington DC for Highway 23 Coalition, and we met with both of our legislators out there, they were very receptive. I think this is still another, let's
yeah.
put it out there, the crisis that we're in, and do they have any suggestions for us or with that?
Yep.
I think we just have to turn every stone. We should have done it 10 years ago.
Are we in a position where we have to prioritize what it is we're asking for bonding and what we're going to the state and the federal for? And is there something else like the wastewater treatment plant that is higher priority than trying to get funds for this building? I mean, we can't keep going back to have we had to prioritize? You get what I'm saying?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. And the wastewater treatment plant is probably a priority. Because that's the salt remediation that I'm talking about.
So is that taking priority over asking for these funds?
I'm not sure what that,
They're different pots of money. Different pots of money. The environmental stuff is all in one place,
yeah,
historical stuff is in another place, and
I'm just
I think we
thinking
have to
about
think
when you have to jockey for position and somebody says, okay, Willmar's got 5 things they want
well,
funded and Waconia says we have 1. And
but I guess it comes down to with the prioritization is also with everything, there's still a percentage that the city has to put in. So.
Sure.
What, yeah, on the stormwater, the water, the wastewater treatment plant, I think some of those can be 10% funded by the city. Historical society, they probably 20% or so too, depending on the grants, just like the DNR grants are usually 80-20. There's not many that are 100% funded.
I don't know if I'm understanding. So if it takes 5 million, if we're thinking that we're going to use it for anything, we're not talking about piecemealing out that 5 million of what we can and can't do, are we? I mean, it's like the roof has to get done. The foundation stuff has to get done. The windows have to get done. That's all part of the 5 million, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
I think it's
yeah.
more likely we're talking about 6 than 5. If it's 4.7 plus a year of inflation, plus $1 million, like we're looking at 6.
probably.
Okay, so it costs $6 million to do, and if we can find some funds, and we have to come up with 10% of that, we would do that.
This doesn't include tuck pointing or elevator.
It includes tuck pointing, but not the elevator.
Is that right?
1.2 million percent.
Say 21, I
We're
heard.
almost there.
I heard.
And summer,
Summer 10, summer 20.
probably when I hit the 20.
And we already have 600,000 we have committed to, so
Back to the windows and doors. Those steel doors in the alley, they were replaced
Right,
way back when.
right.
So you'd have to replace them with original doors that had windows in that people.
The original ones didn't have windows in either. The other doors that were there were much bigger because they brought cars in there.
Yeah, they were like bifold.
Yes, exactly.
So you'd have to put them back in?
I would imagine so. Typically you do. Typically you'd probably have to bring it back to as much original as you could when you start doing remodeling.
Doesn't make sense.
I know the guy that bought the mansion in cities, and he's done a lot of hand tooling.
Okay, so what kind of direction are you looking for? I mean, what are we trying to decide?
we're trying to decide anything tonight.
Well, I think, we're just,
Well,
Right.
maybe if obviously the building still needs to be cleaned, that still has to happen. So if that's something we want to work towards, again, we can bring back a bid proposal, release a bid package out again, see if there's any more interested people that would be willing to come on site and do that remediation. As I had mentioned, there's an interested company that might be coming up to look at the building. And one other one reach out, I do not recall where they are at, but that would be, if that's the next step towards rehabilitation, we'd have to get the building clean no matter what we do. So.
Is there any other immediate needs then, say like the roof, we have leakage that's coming in that,
Point to pick, I mean, yeah. the whole
Yeah.
thing.
you don't know.
what does the most damage, but it's so that it doesn't deteriorate in.
Well, don't know if that's, we don't know if, but we do know the roof is part of the problem. But we don't know,
We knew the roof was leaking 5 years ago or more.
but once
I'm
we
just-
start taking it off, could be into,
Just gonna throw this out there, and
I don't know.
maybe it's not even feasible, I have no idea. What would it take? to Make that a community center, city hall? Tear this down, make it parking. Maybe that's not even something we want to consider.
I know it's a big building. As far as bringing in the community center into it, I would say that there's still a parking issue, so it would not be feasible. But City Hall, it could be feasible. Because I think we would have enough parking in the area for City Hall.
Take it down, you said?
Not take it down, I mean, it would have to be, I don't know how,
Completely gutted and remodeled.
yeah. And I have no idea what the cost of that would be.
We can explore that with BKV. They've done historical building restorations before.
A long time ago, there was a drawing, I think, tear down City Hall, this building. And build a 3-story building next to, that would utilize elevators that could go either direction into the City Hall or to help make the building ADA compliant. And maybe that's whole concept for new and old, and preserving old and
Yeah.
enhancing new. I don't know.
It would, a lot of what I hear is people want us to use our existing buildings, which this would do even if we're gutting it. Redoing, but also it's downtown, which is another thing people wanted. I think using it for city hall would be really good. And then if we get grant money for it, that would even help us cost to city.
I'd be supportive though of sending out that RFP again, especially since you had someone who was interested in it.
If that does become city hall, then that takes care of two questions, what to do with that, what to do with this building. Whereas if it goes off site, now you still have the auditorium to deal with, and then this sitting empty. So.
Another question. What's your plan if we get the armory? That's gonna be city hall then?
That wasn't my plan for City Hall. I was hoping City Hall would have a spot by then. That's 3 years down the road.
Sounded like they don't do land swap, so
No, I think they just finished one down in the city, so I don't think Justice is correct on that. I thought they just finished a land swap deal down in the cities.
It's
Just
not,
about-
it's not normal for them, but
No.
that conversation isn't open yet.
Yeah.
Is that something that we should be looking at? What's in that building? It's been a long time since I've been in there.
Yes, I think it is something we should be looking at.
I just have a question for the group when it comes to the auditorium. I feel like this is the first conversation we've had about the auditorium where there hasn't been the topic of demolition. Are we moving off that as an option?
I feel like that would be a last resort.
How much is demolition?
1.25.
Utilities paid for their demo. That was like $1 million something.
I paid more than that.
Or, yeah, 2 points.
But theirs was a much bigger
Bigger
building
building.
with a lot of asbestos and a lot of other stuff that, because they had a lot in their building.
Well, if we take the 1.2 and 600 we got.
We're on our way.
Carl, I just want to understand, you're talking about having City Hall in the auditorium?
Right. You'd have to remodel the interior somehow. You could keep the historical stuff intact. You'd probably lose the gym basketball court, which would be not a popular choice probably.
But I think that's a give and take if you save the building.
Yeah. And I don't think we can pay $6 million so people can play basketball.
Right.
Cheapskate.
I think if that's the direction, I mean, we can obviously research that, but it's called the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So the first bullet point on that is the property will be used as it was historically, or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, space, and spatial relationships.
But if we can make it ADA, there's some nice offices on that second floor. You know, if we added on to,
Really?
They're not very nice.
You don't think they could be made into nice offices?
I mean, it'd be,
You'd have to get HVAC system.
Well, of course you do.
And that, I think that's gonna be a
But
real
you're gonna have
challenge.
to get that in that building no matter
Yeah,
what.
that's gonna be part of that is that. And we should have done that when we did the new system. When we spent $1 million putting the other system in there.
But either way, it sounds like from what I'm hearing from Kyle is then City Hall is either multi-purpose City Hall gym or multi-purpose City Hall auditorium.
And it
If you grow
certainly
your
can't be a
offices.
city hall because there's not very many, there's not many offices there.
Right, yeah.
Well, then what if we demo it and use parts of it? Build new city hall here, but, and then use the historic parts of it in the new building.
I'm not, until we turn every stone. I mean, if we have gone beyond the repair of this building. And I said it before, shame on us, but until we find out whether this can be fixed or not, demoing it should be I agree with Carl.
I think
The
we have
last
to
discussion.
consider what we're gonna use it for.
Well, if we build if we build functional city hall next to it. Tear this building down and build something that can be used. Let's ask the question.
Okay, just to make sure I understand, because it's on the historical registry, we couldn't just demo the inside is what you're saying?
I don't know the answer.
Sounded like it had to be restored to its original purpose.
So we need to
I
find
guess-
that out too.
Well, that's what,
Or-
if you,
or it
we
isn't.
could have BKV help us with these questions. Because they have done this kind of work before.
Because that's why I'm wondering, so how, you know, like a Carnegie Library that gets, how does that get remodeled then into something else
How did
when it's not
Duluth-
its original purpose?
how did Duluth get their jail into apartment building? Maybe that building wasn't on a national registry.
I don't think it was.
I think we need to know that answer versus
Okay.
an opinions.
But
Right.
Bruce,
We will do that.
Get some more information and relay
Yep.
it back to everybody. That's some good direction, so.
Because that makes a difference in what direction we can go.
Getting back to the VA, there's a program called Office of Construction Facilities Management, Historic Overuse, or the HRP. That's one of the things that John was talking about. A lot of things there. It's all about reusing federal buildings and especially military.
we might want to talk to John. He had some idea.
I'm just gonna throw this out there too. What John does is awesome, but he's also that's his thing. And that's what he's looking at. He's not necessarily looking at a broader municipal use.
Right.
So.
You're right.
But as far as the National Guard. Be a good building for him too. Because then you'd also be by the Veterans War Memorial and all that out there too.
So we talked about a request for proposal to clean it, to try that again. Talked about sitting down with our legislators, both local and contacting our federal. And we talked about, what was the last thing we just talked about? Oh,
Colin, sit down with
BKV
Bruce,
and-
BKV and
sorry,
historical building.
but also just checking what can be done from a historical. That's through them,
He
or
can
we
walk
would do
through
that
that.
separate.
He can walk through that.
That's definitely.
Circulating some ideas. Pretty wild. Well, okay, so you're gonna contact BKV.
Contact BKV, I'll talk to our representatives and And we'll see what else John has to say.
Suppose try to figure out what's gonna happen with the armory.
Oh,
Where we go with that.
I don't think right now you can do anything with the armory until the National Guard comes back and says, hey, we're ready to move.
Sure.
You know, we've got the MOU out there and that's actually got like no deadline on it, so. I think, you know, we just have a open communication with them and, you know, I don't know if it's necessary that we walk through it right this minute since we.
Right.
It's not imminent that next year they're gonna be out of there. But we'll keep that discussion open.
Okay. Move on. Okay. 2024 election. Discussion.
This is me. I asked to have this discussion because we had some concerns of people voting outside their precinct, and wanting us to search for locations within. So I need to just explain to you, where we're at on that. I'm going to pass out this sheet. It has the 2020 numbers and the 2022. 2020 was a presidential election. And as you know, 2024 is also another presidential election. We have 3 elections next year. In March is the presidential primary, August is the primary, and November is the general. So I would compare more back to the 2020 numbers because we tend to have, much higher voter turnout during the presidential election. And where the polling places are on that list, it gives you. So, is there an extra?
I got 2.
Okay, so I have an extra one. It tells you how many people were registered. Thank you. How many voted, and then the percentage of the registered voters that did vote, and then overall for the entire city. So if you see in 2020, we had 10,312 registered voters. Of that, 8,970 voted, and that was an 87% voting overall. In 2022, which was a non-presidential election, we had 10,742 registered voters with 6,351 voting, and that's a 59% overall voting. And then it's, I have per ward and precinct and their polling location and the numbers. I won't read through those all. You guys can read them. And I do have maps. We have a map here on the wall that shows our ward and precinct boundaries by color. I do have this exact same map here if anybody wants a copy to use. And then it's also on TV screen. So everybody can see well enough, understand where we're at. Currently, we have for Ward 1, Precinct 1, it's the Armory, and that is located here. But that's Ward 1, Precinct 1, where they're voting. That was moved there from the community center years back because community center was supposed to be torn down that next year. So I was proactive and got the location, moved at that time. The 4-season shelter was new last year. That is the polling place for Ward 1, Precinct 2. And that was moved from the high rise to here for the various reasons that we talked about at council. Word of Faith Church in Ward 1, Precinct 3 appeared, all the pink. That is where they vote. So they're within their own. St. Mary's is Ward 2, Precinct 1. Here, that's St. Mary's Catholic Church. That encompasses all the grayer area. Vinci is Ward 2, Precinct 2. Rock of Life is Ward 2, Precinct 3. We've been there several years. That's a good polling location, that is a combined one with the township, Willmar Township. Then we have Refuge Church over here in Ward 4, Precinct 1, which is a combined polling location for Ward 3, Precinct 1 and 4-1. Okay. And that was because we had used the conference center for several years, many years. And they notified us that we couldn't use it. They couldn't commit to us using it in August, but possibly November elections. Well, you can't be flip-flopping, you know, so that option, and I did reach out to them again this year, as Kyle did last fall as well. They could not guarantee from year to year. And even if they told us we could use it next year for those dates, if a large conference came in and wanted those dates, we'd get booted out. So we have to have something that will give us definite confirmation. So that is out. Check various other locations here, the Elks Club, and we can't use that because there's alcohol and you'd have to walk through for the voting. The Rescue Squad building was another option, but if they had an emergency, they need the parking lot for their people. So those are really the only two other buildings in this particular area
Does the
for us.
county building have any? Big,
Public Works.
yeah,
No, because they have a lot of in and out parking issues.
okay.
Myself and when Kathy Peterson was alive working for the county auditor's office, we visited many locations and nothing was working, but be able to work out. So that's why we had to go with the combined location over here. We are allowed to go outside your ward area if the location is within 1 mile of the boundary, which does work out okay on here. Then Highland is Ward 3, Precinct 2, Highland Apartments. The WEAC building is for 3-3, and that we used to have here at the auditorium in that War Memorial Room. And then when legislature passed a law that the schools had one of the school or a school building, I should say, non-student building, had to be a polling location. So when they have school elections, it works out. So that's why WEAC was designated for there, moved out of the auditorium. It's too hot in August and very cramped quarters. So it worked out. It was a win-win for both of us. The school did contact me at that time and I was considering contacting them too. So then 4-1 is again Refuge. 4-2 is Calvary. Or not Calvary. Yeah, 4-2 is Calvary.
That's covered.
Yes, sorry. So that, encompasses this smaller area here. And then First Covenant Church, we had to locate there for 4-3 for our 2022 elections because Redeemer Church told us we could no longer use their facility. So there's no questions on that. The wards and precincts, we went through the redistricting after the census. And, you have to try to get your numbers in comparison. So each one is represented kind of the same amount of numbers. Then we had to do the white population and non-white population, make sure, that was fairly evenly distributed as well throughout the areas.
Where's 4-3?
4-3, here they go to First Covenant Church now. So they are outside their area, but we're within that mile. Pardon me?
Check AG.
AG, no, but didn't be down there. First Covenant has a very beautiful gym area. It worked out really well. Carl actually was a head
Yeah,
judge
judge.
there.
You were a judge.
Just
I just thought you
Go
were gonna have a
down.
problem. Yeah.
I-
First bill, yeah.
No.
No?
That is something that we will be sending out letters now in 1st of September to each of the polling locations, getting their commitment that we can use their locations in 2024 again. We usually have had no issues with that, just to
I
verify.
thought you were having a problem with continuing being outside of the actual ward.
No, that's not a problem on our end. That's a concern of some council members. I haven't heard any complaints from any citizens at all, the judges. Everybody says everything works well, so, yeah. I just wanted you guys to know, we have explored all these options, and that's why we came up with these polling locations. There's also been discussion of combining some more, so instead of 12 locations or 11 locations, cut those down. My recommendation is that we don't do that for 2024 because it's a presidential election, and wait and do it on an off year. Just less confusion for the voters. It's expensive to be switching around. And the Secretary of State's office, they send out all the cards notifying the voters. When you have a higher percentage in presidential election years, it would put a lot of extra work on the judges because you have people showing up at their old place or being confused. So then you have to have judges trying, no, now you're over here, and there's enough confusion during the presidential election. So just to kind of alleviate that, I will do whatever you guys, if you want me to shorten them down, I can certainly try, but we would have to verify that then with each of the facilities. Would you be willing to accommodate an extra 1,000 people coming through?
Instead of having enough judges.
We have enough judges, yep. And even if we consolidate down to smaller ones, we still are going to need approximately the same amount of judges to handle everything. Pardon me?
Just to add to Judy's point about when we talk about consolidating. So it mentioned the city had set its boundaries, its precincts, its wards, adjusted those boundaries during the last census. So even if we consolidated this year, next year, or anytime before the next census, we still have to have 4 wards for each, 3 precincts for each of the wards. So it's not going to be, you just go and go to this corner and check in. You'll have 3 different stations inside one polling location. And I think it honestly would get more confusing if we did that. The situation that we do have that in a couple of areas, they're very large spaces, so it works. That doesn't work in every location that we currently have.
Yep. Yeah, we wouldn't have really any facility that could handle all 3 precincts. To go down to 4 polling places for the city.
What's the benefit of consolidating?
Pardon me?
What's the benefit of consolidating? If we need the same amount of election judges, why are we even looking at that?
It was something I had brought up just to explore it. We've got 12 polling locations. Maybe you look at some of the numbers, we've got roughly 1,000 people going through some of our large locations, and you look at others, well, maybe we've got 500, 600, 800 people walking through a couple for others. Looking for opportunities. If we've got facilities that can handle 1,100 people, is there an opportunity to consolidate? And yeah, maybe, but I don't think we'd want to do that. After talking with Judy through it all, I don't think we'd want to really explore that until the next census, when we'd have to explore redrawing census in district lines, precinct lines, excuse me.
Strikes me as like an inconvenience to voters, number 1, to change what they're used to, number 2, to make them travel further away from home to vote. If anything, I could perhaps see if we lose another polling location, maybe then it's a time to consolidate and move them to another. We have to move them.
I did for some scenarios also to cut. And that was a concern of prior mayor. He wanted to possibly cut down on some of our polling locations. So that's why we've explored it. bringing it to you guys' attention, so you know, we are working behind the scenes, you know, trying to make something work out, but it just doesn't seem to be feasible. And like I say, my recommendation is don't mess with things for a presidential election. It just makes it very hard, and I think Carl could speak to that. For the judges, you know, they have enough little obstacles that are going on already. And next year's election could be an interesting depending on who's on the ballot. So,
I think it would be interesting in have who's on the ballot.
yeah, oh, yeah,
We really did like the convention center option because that allowed us to move. I think just making that, correct me if I'm wrong, Judy, but if we moved to the convention center, we would have been able to get, I think, everybody in their own ward. But with having only a year-to-year guarantee with the convention center, it
And that
was about
wasn't even a year.
$1,000 a day or $1,000 a year
nope,
per election.
it was $1,000 a day. So next year would be $9,000. Because
So
we
it
have
just-
3 elections, and each election, there's 3 days. We set up one day, the election is the next, we tear down the following day. So we have to pay for 3 days. We currently, with our facilities, which are mostly churches, we don't have to pay any rental fees. We pay, some of them submit a custodial bill, but most of them, no, that's.
Even
that's
if
our
money wasn't an
so,
object,
yeah.
and we didn't have to worry about it, they still couldn't guarantee us past a year. It just doesn't work for us.
And not even a year, as
Well,
we said,
right, we could get-
unless a convention, a large convention was coming in one of those dates, we would be booted out. And we do have to have, the polling locations have to be dedicated before December 31st each year. So that resolution will be coming again before you guys. If we are to do any combining of locations, that has to be done prior to November 1st of this year because of the presidential primary next year. So down the road, you know, we went through what I had always hoped to get to at some point, you know, of combining. We still couldn't get down to 4, but you know, we could have some. And like we said, that would be a good time when the next census comes, really review everything or do it on the off year in 2026. We're only 7 years away from the next census.
I was just gonna comment, Ward 4, when Redeemer said we couldn't go there anymore. So that's outside. First Covenant is,
They're outside their,
and
their
there's
precinct.
an awful lot of apartment buildings in the precinct. And lots of people who don't drive, you know, so from that concept of being able to walk or busing, whatever is needed, but First Covenant is basically what, 2-3 blocks outside of the edge of the ward.
And now, you know, they do have the option to vote by mail. You can absentee ballot long before the election day. So there's options out there. If you want to vote, you will find a way to vote.
That had 86% voter turnout, 2020.
Yeah, yep.
People are still being able,
54 and 22.
yeah, that's to be expected.
The non-election years are, or the non-presidential election years, the voter turnout is very, very low.
Yeah, but still.
That's historical.
Percent in this town, so.
Pardon me?
Said it's still over 50% in this town, which is
So
still high compared to anybody else.
We have serious voters. We're fortunate to have a lot of people that take that responsibility.
Yep.
And get out there and vote.
On the reverse side, First Covenant was very easy, accessible. I mean, was very easy to use.
They have excellent parking.
Yep.
They have, it's the gymnasium, so it's
Big
you know,
area.
totally away from the church and it's large. So that is something, you know, possibly to consider down the road to combine with in that one.
Two could easily go.
And yeah, 2 could easily go in there. And that was when it's, I was close to him. So just
Good.
wanting some direction, if you guys are okay with us pursuing staying? Do you want something combined? I mean, I need direction, otherwise I'm leaving it the way it is, and I will present that resolution to you guys come November or first part of December. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering because part of the Somali voting residents, how comfortable they feel attending a Christian church. For other events, we have talked always about it and have avoided to go into any other faith gathering space. And I know this has nothing to do with faith activity, but the fact that they are being asked to, by the government, to attend one of a church to vote, maybe an obstacle. And maybe that's something to think for the future as we are more engaging into this issue.
The problem is with that, we just don't have the facilities other than the churches available.
How about other schools?
You can't have schools with students there.
My wife is a
Okay.
judge at Word of Faith, I think,
Word of faith.
and that's got a fairly significant Somali population of votes there, and they seem to have a pretty good turnout. So
Also, the central office building has had a pretty good turnout too.
Yeah.
But that's a school, it's a non-religious building, but
Be something interesting for you to have some conversations with some Somali community leaders to find out if that is an issue.
Right, and maybe keep an eye on who shows up at where the higher population in our wards are, and if the Somali people are reflecting to the larger community percentage-wise.
oh, definitely.
I'll keep an eye on that.
Thing to watch going forward. And to consider, you know, if we get any other facilities, I'd always hoped we would have at one time, it was decided that the city hall and community center were going to be one at the current location of the community center. So I was going to put us back there and even make it two areas.
We need to make a motion to,
You can't make a motion tonight, but
So-
just give me a consensus if everybody's on board with staying the way it is. If you have any other suggestions, any other questions, then otherwise we will,
yeah,
It's fine.
everybody's okay.
It's fine.
And this will be an ongoing discussion and review over the years. No, it's not that it's set in stone, so.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
okay. Work session calendar. Yeah.
So Kyle included the work session that we have calendar, that reminder of where we're at with our work sessions. Coming up in the future here, we will be having, of course, work sessions regarding the budget that we're gonna be working on, so that's going to be on here is, and I know everybody's trying to focus on the city hall and that, but right now we're looking at our calendar that's gonna be more on the budget side of things right now. Budget community, so we have capital improvement planning coming up here. We'll have the budget itself. And then even after the preliminary budget is approved in September, we hope that it's gonna be approved in September on the September 5th council meeting, but that'll be remain to be seen. We can go as late as then the 19th of September council meeting, but we do have to have the preliminary budget approved by the end of September. So, then, we will be working then in between. I would say that, you know, having some further discussions from September until our December 1st meeting when the budget has to be approved. Our truth and taxation is set for December. 6th, I believe, is the date. December 4th is the date that our truth and taxation will be held. So in between there, we'll have some working that we'll be doing, trying to probably pare down our budget and such too. So but we're gonna try to do that also before we give it to you. So a lot of work has been going in on that right now. We're also been working on the Tyler Technology software implementation. And we hope that our implementation will be up October 1st is what we're looking at. So more to come on that. Everybody's working very hard to try to get that all done.
So when should we start having chocolates and things delivered?
Immediately.
Okay, it's October.
On a daily basis would be really nice.
Until October.
Take turn.
Is Columbus Day a day that staff
No.
has? No.
Columbus Day is the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, I got it. Swapped it. We swapped it.
Yeah.
All right. Just checking.
The way you said it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like.
Take the day after Thanksgiving out. See, what else do we look for on the calendar? Besides the city hall, so we'll continue those discussions too in the work sessions. But the focus, I think, over the next month and a half or so is going to be the budget. So if there's any dates that you don't see there, we might want to put in a couple more instead of just the one a month. So if anybody has any dates out in the future there, that would be an issue. If you let me know, please. So that's, if we need to have something out in the future, we could schedule something. So, but we'll also try to get the, council admin briefings in between on the 4th week too. There's a lot going on.
I was hoping we could have a location for City Hall by the end of September.
Good.
Yes, I know we could. That was a message to you and to the council
By who?
by me. I think it's doable. I just want to make sure it's the right decision. Say it later.
Well, I think any decision will, everybody's always going to have another opinion if it's the right decision or not. So it's just a matter, you just gotta make a decision, because talking about pricing and things like that, it can't, I think we pretty much know as far as dollar wise where we're going to be landing. We're in that no matter what. Single building, probably 10 to 12 million, 13 million. Double building, joint use building, probably anywhere from 22 million to 29 million, 30 million before decision is made. But, no, we can't go based on the price, because until we know where we're going to land and be able to sit down with an architect, draw the plans out, know what it looks like, have a design, and really decide the use and what kind of square footage we need. That's what's going to drive the number.
When do things go to a referendum to have the citizens decide?
You want to put a vote, you can.
How does that work?
To put a question on the ballot, we'd have to come up, formulate that question, and have our attorney help us write that question. And we would have to have it, I believe, by the 1st of May, 2024 to the state to put the question on the ballot.
be able to put it on the ballot.
Yeah, I think it's May.
I think it is May as well.
Talking just about picking a location.
Yep, because I got people asking me, why isn't the council listening to the public and
Because
their
they're
wishes?
about the community center, see.
I wouldn't say they all are, but
I'd say there's enough people out there, maybe who are being more quiet.
Yeah.
Not agreeing to that location. And,
that's why. if
the
it went
question
to-
that I have
people
is
could vote.
different from the standpoint of, could we be forced to go to a referendum? Because that was discussed the last time we had the conversation about.
But the force to the referendum was the spending side of it, not.
That's what I wanted clarification on.
That would be we would have to research that. I don't know if it would be I don't know if it would be on the ballot to pick a location. It would be it might go to a referendum when we get into the bonding side of it.
Yes.
If there's a reverse referendum to the bonding. Then after that point, then it has the option to be put on the ballot, but whether you want to pay
Yeah,
for
not
that.
a referendum you're talking about. You just want to know about a vote from the people. Well, can't you almost get the same? Isn't there a process we probably could go through without having a vote like that?
Could you just do a survey?
I mean, a survey,
Have a questionnaire out to.
but that survey has to be also very mindful that it is people of the city, not other people. Because I'm sure everybody will say, well, the West Central Tribune did theirs, but who we know was submitting the answer.
Right, that's why I was thinking if we went by presidential election year of voting, you have a very good representation of the citizens and what their wishes are going to be.
I believe that was the presidential election the last time we passed the referendum.
You know, even your discussions before with open houses about the building, you had 59 people come to an open house,
Right, that's where I feel like.
you know, so maybe then we need maybe it's a hotter topic now, that you might get a better turnout for an open house.
I just have a hard time that we can't come up with I know we can't come up with it ourselves. And this is ridiculous. I mean, let's get it done.
The citizens voted.
He's talking
for you.
about
I was gonna say that. You were elected for that, make that decision.
Yes.
But are 8 people representing the citizens correctly? That's what I'm getting.
I think it's a very divided issue. I'm sorry, we voted this once before. And we were on our way, and we made the decisions, I think, for the right reasons. And we are now back in the middle of this quandary. And who are we helping? How are we helping the future of Willmar? I think we need to be visionary here.
I do too.
I do. And I think there's just a strong difference of opinion.
I
And
do
even
too.
from a cost standpoint, and ending up with a product that can last for 50 years that isn't encumbered by something else. And using our own land. Sorry.
Then we would be having the same conversation about remodeling the auditorium.
Well, we have a responsibility for a historic building, the auditorium.
If we were to turn that into the city hall, that is no different than remodeling a JCPenney's building.
It
or
is,
anything
because
else.
that's our building. That's our responsibility. We aren't responsible for the mall. We aren't responsible for the mall. That's a private
Totally
company.
get that, different conversation. But it's part of that about not going to the mall, where people talk about being visionary and talking about that building for the future. You're building for the future in both places.
Yeah, that's our responsibility to figure out. It shouldn't be people handed paper to call us from an employee at the community center.
So why is that any different? You've mentioned that a couple of times, but why is that any different than
Use it.
10 years ago, when they wanted the auditorium remodeled, and you had a small interest group of what, 100 people that went to the gun range.
We made a mistake.
I'm just saying, that was,
Let's
you-
not make
you
a
had-
mistake again.
so even if people were given numbers of who to contact about expressing their opinion about where they thought the community center should go, they're a stakeholder, they're a user.
But
Why wouldn't they?
we have $2 million to deal with communities. Community center is consuming our conversation about City Hall.
If the two are gonna be together, of course it is.
Well, it shouldn't be. City Hall should be the first concept.
More citizens are impacted by where a community center is than where the city hall is.
Then let's
That would
keep
make
the
sense.
conversation separate. But we are we
But you
made a
can't,
decision.
but you can't have one without the other. You can't talk about going to J.C. Penney's if you're not gonna have the city hall with.
I
Because they're
understand,
not gonna
but we
use it.
already agreed to put them together on our own property. We already agreed to do that. And we stopped because of reasons that were out of our control. We made a decision not to go forward because of that. We made that decision.
We also made a
voted
lot of other
once
decisions. We can't get hung up on that
We
either.
voted once before not to do this.
So that
And
whole
it got
council's
thrown back
different
on the
though, right?
table.
Like,
Well, it is.
the majority of this council was not present for that conversation.
How many of us voted? 1, 2, 3.
3 of the
Four?
9.
Julie was there. She voted. She
Is it
was part of
four?
the,
But 4 of the 9. Again, the majority of the council.
Yeah,
Not
but
present.
we're divided. The people who voted for that the last time are not in
I'm
the
just-
same conversation.
I'm just going back, like you said, we're very divided.
Mhm.
And the citizens are, number one, frustrated that we can't make a decision. And number two,
Disagree.
not feeling heard, feeling that this council is not representing their wishes and what they think is the best thing to do with their money.
And I can show you emails and other information for the same people contacting me that don't want us to be there. So I'm not gonna buy that we're not following this, what the citizens want. But I also believe that we hold more information. We have access to more information than a lot of citizens that had. I answered phone calls where people didn't want to talk to me. They just wanted to read what they were told to say. When I started to engage with them, they wanted to hang up. It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Well, I don't want a split vote. I don't want it to be 4-4. I want the council decision. Not because I would have to vote, but because you're elected to represent.
Well, I fear you have that. You have that.
Here's my personal thoughts on it, just in case y'all care. I feel like if I was a citizen, I wasn't on council, I would probably think the mall was a great location. I would think that's easy for me to get to. It's convenient for myself. But I'm on city council, so to me, I think 10 years from now, I want to look at whatever we pick and be proud of our choice. And I'm afraid that if we're at the mall 10 years from now, I will be ashamed of what it is. That's how I feel. Because I don't feel like it's going to help the mall having us there. I think we're going to end up spending way more money to fix things because we're attached to the mall. I think it'll be embarrassing having that parking lot all around it. That's my city council self. I can't vote for the mall. So that's why to ask the citizens, if, like I said, if I was just a citizen, I would think the mall was great, but I have to think ahead.
Can certainly appreciate the reason that you send things like this to a referendum. is because those that sit on council have more information. Like, I believe that to be true. I think that's the whole purpose of representative democracy. I don't know that I could ever believe, though, that the majority of citizens of Willmar don't think that the mall is the preferred location. And so one of the things that factors into my decision is to listen to those. I would encourage to just dismiss their opinions by some people who come to us and told us, well, don't listen to what other people are telling you. I don't know how we can do that. I think it's our job to listen. And you can vote against the majority for a lot of really good reasons. But I don't.
Majority you've heard. Oh,
Absolutely.
Not me.
Absolutely. But no, this is what I'm saying, like, again, like, maybe not who they're contacting, but from everything that's attempted to take a broad response from this city, 80% is the number that's come up on multiple occasions, so I just don't know how they can be that wrong. And that's why.
Where's the 80% coming from?
Well, where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand your question. You're asking what surveys have been?
What surveys
80%?
have been done where you're saying it's 80%?
I'm saying that the two that I'm knowledgeable of are the Rock and Robbins ones, which again, I'm not saying any of these are scientifically, polled, hard data.
Who
And
did
then-
one at Rock and Roll?
League of Women Voters.
Okay.
And then the other one being the West Central Trib
Right.
poll, right? And again, like, I'm just saying, like, they can be wrong by 30%. And the majority of citizens in this community would still prefer it to be at the mall. So again, you can vote against the majority for a lot of good reasons, but I don't know that any of us could really, in my opinion, can go into that vote thinking that the majority is for anything other than the mall. And so that's why I agree with Julie that, I can understand, like, people are frustrated. They're not feeling heard.
How many people come to City Hall? The mayor's, Mark Calvin told me before it was 5 to 7 a day. I don't know if that's right.
There's more than that. The Planning and Development Department generates the majority of the traffic.
Yeah, but we're maybe talking
There's
25.
Yeah, I would say that would be a good even number.
So we're talking 4%, 5% of the population. And then you've got the senior center. I don't know how many they have up.
You should spend a day out there. See how much activity goes on out there. For people that make the comment that that population is going to be gone in 15 or 20 years, and then who's going to be a user out there, you should see how busy that place is, all the rooms.
I think there's two sides to that. If you talk about the senior club members will acknowledge that they're not growing. And we have a responsibility to the senior club. Then there's the community center side of it. And the senior club has to allow the community center side to function, which they are. But don't combine that into one statement and say that they're going to go away. I think I was quoted that. I never meant it that way. But if you talk to senior club members, I've had senior club members talk to me. They, the Wednesday and the Friday, we have a commitment to them, I believe. With that, we still have that commitment. But we need a community center to do not just senior activities.
Right. And they're doing that now.
I agree with you 100%. 100%. But we also have other factions with that. Budgeting and all those types of things. When we designated $2 million, we didn't say we were going to spend $10 million on a community center. And then we changed and we went to a dual building so we could combine and do those things. We voted on that. That's fine. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. We have responsibilities to all of that. And to think that they're not going to be somewhere if we would tear down this community center, we have an obligation that they would be somewhere. We would make a commitment, just as if we tore down City Hall and rebuilt here. We'd have a commitment to have City Hall somewhere.
I don't think there's any question about that.
Oh, there is.
Well,
There is, because
they
I've
would
had
go
people call
someplace. They
me.
get relocated someplace.
Well, yes, but we need to make that commitment to them with that.
If they
if
were to
it
get
stays,
relocated, they would have a place. I mean, I think that's. a
but if
given.
it stays there, we have a responsibility to deal with traffic. We haven't done that
Right,
enough.
where we're at.
City Hall. We're right here.
It's a conference room one.
Downtown Wilmer.
Yeah,
End of September, right?
That's what I'd like to see.
Put it on your calendar. Let's go home. Hungry.
All right. How's that?